Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour and watched the stars through the main screen. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept holding the cup anyway. The ship moved quietly through space near Jupiter's orbit where they were supposed to find nothing but empty darkness and maybe some asteroids. Lieutenant Ben Carter sat at his station checking the tactical display for the 100th time that day. The young officer had joined the crew only 6 months ago, but he was already one of the best they had. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he ran another scan of the area around them. Commander, Lisa Hayes worked at the science station, analyzing data from their deep space sensors. She had spent the last 15 years studying alien life forms that might exist somewhere in the galaxy. So far they had found nothing but rocks and ice and empty space. Today felt different, though she could not explain why. The ship's communications officer, Rachel Kim, suddenly looked up from her console with wide eyes. Her hands shook slightly as she turned to face the captain. The normally calm woman seemed unable to speak for a moment before she found her voice. "Sir, there is something coming out of hyperspace," she said quietly. "Multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Captain Morrison set down his coffee cup and moved to the center of the bridge. He had been in command of exploration vessels for 12 years and had seen many strange things among the stars. Nothing had prepared him for what appeared on the main screen when the computer finished processing the sensor data. 7 massive ships materialized from the swirling energy of hyperspace near Jupiter's largest moon. The vessels looked like they had been carved from single pieces of crystal that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. Each ship was easily 10 times larger than the Endeavour and moved with a grace that seemed to ignore the normal rules of physics. The lead ship approached slowly, and Captain Morrison could see intricate patterns of light moving beneath its translucent hull. The crystal structure seemed alive somehow, as if the ship itself was a living being rather than a machine built by intelligent hands. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," Rachel announced. "The signal is coming through on multiple frequencies and appears to be some kind of universal translation protocol. They are requesting permission to communicate." Captain Morrison nodded and straightened his uniform. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since they first reached the stars. First contact with an alien intelligence would change everything they knew about their place in the universe. "Put them through," he said calmly. The main screen flickered and then showed the interior of the alien vessel. The space beyond seemed to defy understanding, with floating crystal formations and streams of colored light that moved through the air like living things. Gravity appeared to work differently there, as objects and beings moved in all directions without regard for up or down. Figure approached the viewing area, and Captain Morrison felt his breath catch in his throat. The being was clearly intelligent and appeared almost human in basic shape, but with skin that glowed with a soft blue light. Silver hair flowed around her shoulders and moved as if she was underwater rather than breathing air. Her eyes were the most striking feature as they shifted from deep purple to bright gold depending on the angle of light. She wore clothing that seemed to be made from the same crystal material as her ship, and it moved around her body like liquid rather than solid fabric. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet," she said in perfect English, though her voice carried musical tones that human voices could never produce. "I am Princess Lyra Veltar of the Zilarian Stellar Empire. We have traveled far to meet with your kind." Captain Morrison stepped forward and tried to appear confident despite the overwhelming nature of what he was witnessing. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Navy. Welcome to our solar system, Princess. This is indeed a historic moment for both our peoples." The alien princess smiled, and the expression seemed genuine despite the obvious differences between their species. "We have been watching your people for many generations, Captain Morrison. Your rapid advancement and unique approach to problem solving has caught the attention of our scientists and philosophers." Commander Hayes leaned forward at her station as her scientific training kicked in. The implications of what the princess had just said were staggering. An advanced alien civilization had been observing Earth for centuries without making contact until now. "You have been studying us," Captain Morrison said carefully. "May I ask why you chose this moment to reveal yourselves?" Princess Lyra's expression became more serious and her eyes shifted to a darker shade of blue. "Your people have recently achieved faster than light travel, which was the condition we set for first contact. But there are other reasons, Captain. Urgent reasons that affect not only your world, but many others throughout this region of the galaxy." Lieutenant Carter's tactical display suddenly came alive with new contacts. His training had taught him to watch for threats even during diplomatic encounters, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Dozens of new ships were approaching the outer edge of the solar system at incredible speed. "Captain," he called out with barely controlled alarm in his voice. "Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching from beyond Pluto configuration. Unknown, but they are moving fast and appear to be on an intercept course." Princess Lyra turned to look at something outside the viewing area, and her skin seemed to lose some of its luminous quality. When she looked back at the human captain, her expression was grave. "They have found us," she said quietly. "The Vorac have been hunting our diplomatic mission since we left Zalarian space. Captain Morrison, your people are about to face something that has been destroying civilizations for thousands of years." The main screen split to show both the alien princes and the approaching fleet. The new ships looked nothing like the elegant crystal vessels of the Zalarians. These were angular black shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in perfect formation like a swarm of mechanical insects closing in on their prey. Captain Morrison felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like never before. In the space of minutes, his quiet exploration mission had become humanity's first contact with alien life and potentially their first interstellar war. The decisions he made in the next few hours would determine the fate of his entire species. "Princess," he said formally, "I think we need to talk." The black ships emerged from hyperspace like shadows given form and substance. Captain Morrison counted at least 300 vessels in the first wave alone, and more were still arriving. Each ship was massive and angular with surfaces that seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. They moved with mechanical precision that made his skin crawl. Princess Lyra watched the approaching fleet with eyes that had shifted to a deep red color. Her luminous skin had dimmed considerably, and she seemed smaller somehow, as if the very presence of these enemy ships was draining her energy. She turned back to face the human captain with an expression of profound sadness. "Captain Morrison, these are the Vorac," she said quietly. "They are not like us or like you. They were once a living species, but they replaced their bodies with machines thousands of years ago. Now they exist only to destroy all organic life in the galaxy." Commander Hayes studied the sensor readings at her science station, and what she found made no sense according to human understanding of physics. The enemy ships appeared to be made from some kind of adaptive metal that changed its molecular structure as she watched. Their weapon systems were unlike anything in Earth's databases. "Princes, how many of them are there?" Captain Morrison asked while keeping his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. His crew was looking to him for leadership, and he could not show weakness now. "Too many," Princess Lyra replied. "They have been expanding across the galaxy for millennia. Every world they conquer adds to their strength. Every species they destroy makes them more powerful. The Zalarian Empire has been fighting them for over 3,000 years, and we are losing." Lieutenant Carter's tactical display showed the enemy formation spreading out to surround both the human and Zalarian fleets. The Vorac ships moved like pieces on a chessboard, with each vessel taking a position that maximized their collective firepower while minimizing their exposure to return attacks. "Sir, their formation is perfect," Carter reported. "They are positioning themselves to attack from multiple angles simultaneously. Our defensive capabilities are not designed for this kind of coordinated assault." Dr. Amy Rodriguez had been quietly working at a secondary science station analyzing the limited data they had gathered about the approaching enemy. The chief scientist rarely spoke during bridge operations, but now she looked up with a concerned expression. Captain, I am detecting something unusual about these Vorac ships, she announced. Their hulls appear to be learning and adapting even as we scan them. The molecular structure is changing in response to our sensor sweeps, as if they are developing countermeasures in real time. Princess Lyra nodded grimly at this observation. That is correct, Dr. Rodriguez. The Vorac possess artificial intelligence that learns from every encounter. They study their opponents and develop perfect counters for any strategy or weapon used against them. This is why they are so difficult to defeat. Captain Morrison felt the enormity of the situation settling over him like a heavy blanket. Humanity had barely developed faster than light travel, and now they were facing an enemy that had been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years. The odds seemed impossible. Princess, why did they follow you here? He asked. What makes Earth important enough to bring such a massive fleet to our system? Princess Lyra moved closer to the viewing screen and her image became clearer. Morrison could see that she was younger than he had first thought, but carried herself with the weight of someone who had seen too much death and destruction. They followed us because we came to ask for your help, she said simply. The Zellarian Empire is desperate, Captain Morrison. We have lost dozens of star systems and billions of our people. Our technology is superior to yours, but it follows logical patterns that the Vorac can predict and counter. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her analysis with a puzzled expression. I do not understand, Princess. If your technology is more advanced than ours, how could we possibly help you against such an enemy? Because you think differently than we do, Princess Lyra explained. Zellarian minds work in logical patterns that follow mathematical principles. We make decisions based on optimal outcomes and predictable results, but humans are different. You make choices that seem random or irrational but somehow work anyway. Commander Hayes had been listening to this exchange while running continuous scans of the Vorac fleet. Something in the enemy formation was bothering her, but she could not identify exactly what it was. The ships were positioned perfectly according to tactical doctrine, but there was something missing. Princess, are you saying that the Vorac cannot adapt to unpredictable behavior? She asked. That is exactly what I am saying, Commander, Princess Lyra replied. The artificial intelligence that controls their fleets is designed to learn from logical patterns and predictable strategies. When faced with truly random decisions, they enter processing loops trying to understand the reasoning behind actions that have no logical foundation. Captain Morrison began to see where this conversation was leading, and he did not like the implications. If the Zellarians needed human help to fight this war, then Earth was about to become involved in a conflict that had been raging since before human civilization began. The enemy fleet had completed its positioning and now hung in space like a dark cloud waiting to strike. The Vorac ships were so black they seemed to bend light around them, creating distortions in space that hurt to look at directly. Princess Lyra stepped back from the viewing screen and did something that shocked everyone on the bridge of the Endeavor. The alien royal slowly dropped to one knee and bowed her head in a gesture of submission that was clearly meaningful to her species. Captain Jake Morrison of Earth, she said formally. I, Princess Lyra Veltar, heir to the Zellarian Stellar Empire, kneel before you as a supplicant. My people have technology that could transform your world. Energy that never runs out. Medicine that can extend life for centuries. Ships that can travel between stars and days rather than years. She paused and lifted her head to look directly at him. Her eyes had shifted to a bright gold color and seemed to glow with their own internal light. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper, but carried clearly through the bridge. Only I can give you everything, Captain Morrison, she said. But to save both our peoples, you must accept rulership over the Zellarian Empire and lead our combined forces against the Vorac. The choice is yours, but know that if you refuse, both our civilizations will fall to the machines. Captain Morrison stared at the kneeling alien princess and felt the weight of two entire species resting on his shoulders. Captain Morrison stared at the kneeling alien princess and felt his mind racing through the impossible choice she had just presented to him. The bridge of the Endeavor had fallen completely silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Every member of his crew was waiting for his response to an offer that could change the fate of both their species. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh was the first to break the silence. The experienced officer had served on exploration vessels for 20 years and had never encountered anything like this situation. He stepped forward from his position at the engineering station with a troubled expression on his weathered face. "Captain, with all due respect, this is insane," he said quietly. "She is asking you to take responsibility for billions of lives across dozens of star systems. We barely know how to govern our own planet, let alone an entire galactic empire." Communications. Officer Rachel Kim looked up from her console where she had been monitoring transmissions from the approaching Vorac fleet. The enemy ships were maintaining complete radio silence, but their formation continued to tighten around both the human and Zalarian vessels. "Sir, the tactical situation is getting worse by the minute," she reported. "If we are going to make a decision, it needs to happen soon. The Vorac will be in weapons range within the next 30 minutes. Princess Lyra remained kneeling despite the uncomfortable position. Her luminous skin had taken on a bluish tinge that seemed to indicate distress or fear among her people. When she spoke, her voice carried centuries of sadness and defeat. "I understand your hesitation, Captain Morrison," she said without raising her head. "What I'm asking goes against every instinct your species has developed. But you must understand that the Zalarian Empire is dying. We have fought this war for longer than your entire civilization has existed, and we are losing." Commander Hayes had been analyzing the sensor data from the Zalarian ships, and what she discovered made her lean forward with interest. The alien vessels were incredibly advanced, but their defensive systems followed predictable patterns that could be easily studied and countered. "Princess, why can't your own people lead this fight?" she asked. "Your technology is clearly superior to anything humans have developed. What makes you think we could do better than your experienced commanders?" Princess Lyra finally raised her head to look at the human science officer. Her eyes had shifted to a deep purple color that seemed to indicate deep thought or concentration among her species. "Because, Commander Hayes, we are bound by our genetic programming," she explained. "Zalarian society has existed for thousands of years based on predetermined castes and biological imperatives. I am a member of the royal caste, which means my mind literally cannot conceive of solutions that fall outside established parameters." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her analysis of the Vorac ships with a startled expression. The implications of what the princes had just revealed were staggering from a scientific perspective. "Are you saying that your people are genetically programmed to think in specific ways?" she asked. "That would explain why your strategies have become predictable to an adaptive enemy." "That is correct, Dr. Princess Lyra replied. "Every Zalarian is born into a specific role with genetic modifications that enhance certain abilities while limiting others. I can process tactical information faster than any human, but I cannot think outside the logical frameworks built into my DNA." Lieutenant Carter had been watching the enemy formation spread out around them and noticed something that made his tactical training scream warnings. The Vorac ships were positioning themselves not just to attack, but to study every move the defenders made. "Captain, they are learning from us right now," he announced. "Every sensor sweep we make and every defensive position we take is being analyzed and recorded. By the time this battle starts, they will know exactly how we think and fight." "Captain." Morrison walked to the center of the bridge and tried to process everything he had learned in the last few minutes. An ancient alien empire was offering to give humanity technology beyond their wildest dreams, but only if he agreed to lead their military forces against an enemy that had been conquering the galaxy for millennia. "Princess, what exactly would accepting your offer mean for my people?" he asked carefully. "Would humans become rulers over the Zalarians, or would we be partners in this fight?" Princess Lyra slowly rose to her feet, and Morrison could see hope beginning to shine in her golden eyes. "Captain, the ancient prophecies of my people speak of the Chaos Bringers, who would arrive when our empire faced its darkest hour. They describe beings who fight without pattern and create solutions where none should exist. The main screen flickered and showed a holographic communication from what appeared to be the Zalarian High Council. Dozens of alien figures appeared in ornate robes with skin that glowed in different colors, representing various castes within their society. "Princess Lyra," spoke an elderly Zalarian with silver skin and pure white eyes. "The enemy fleet has grown larger than our initial projections indicated. We are detecting over 1,000 Vorac vessels approaching the human homeworld. Our defensive fleet cannot protect both our diplomatic mission and the populated planets of this system." Captain Morrison felt his blood run cold at this information. The enemy was not just threatening his ship, but Earth itself along with its 8 billion inhabitants. The choice Princess Lyra had presented was no longer just about saving two civilizations, but about protecting his own family and friends. Dr. Rodriguez had been working frantically to analyze wreckage from a previous Vorac battle that the Zalarian ships had brought with them for study. What she discovered made her stand up suddenly with excitement and fear competing for control of her expression. "Captain, I have found something important," she announced. "The Vorac artificial intelligence has a critical flaw in its programming. When it encounters decisions that make no tactical sense, the system enters recursive loops trying to find logical explanations for illogical behavior." Princess Lyra turned to look at the human scientist with eyes that had brightened to a golden color. "Dr. Rodriguez, you have just described the exact weakness that we have been unable to exploit. Zalarian minds cannot make truly irrational decisions because our genetic programming prevents us from acting without logical foundation." Captain Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew and saw determination mixed with fear. These were good people who had volunteered to explore the unknown regions of space. Now they were being asked to help save the galaxy from an enemy none of them had known existed an hour ago. "Princess, if I accept your offer," he said slowly, "it will not be as a ruler over your people, but as a partner in this fight. Humans and Zalarians working together with each species contributing what they do best." Princess Lyra smiled for the first time since the Vorac fleet had appeared, and her entire body seemed to glow brighter. "Captain Morrison, that is exactly what the prophecies predicted the Chaos Bringers would say." Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour and made the decision that would change the course of galactic history. He looked at Princess Lyra and nodded slowly while his crew watched with a mixture of fear and determination in their eyes. "We accept your offer, Princess," he said firmly. "Not as conquerors, but as allies. Humanity will fight alongside the Zalarian Empire against this threat to all organic life in the galaxy." Princess Lyra's skin brightened with relief and hope as she activated a communication device that connected her to the Zalarian fleet. Within minutes, the crystal ships began moving into new formations alongside the human vessels. The sight was both beautiful and strange as the elegant alien craft took protective positions around the much smaller Earth ships. The combined fleet moved toward the asteroid belt where Captain Morrison planned to make their stand against the approaching Vorac armada. Chief Engineer Walsh had been working with Zalarian technicians to install energy shields on the human ships. The alien technology was far more advanced than anything Earth had developed, but it required human creativity to use effectively. Commander Hayes found herself working directly with Princess Lyra to coordinate the defense plan. The alien princess had an incredible ability to process tactical information, but she needed human input to develop strategies that the Vorac could not predict or counter. "The enemy fleet will expect us to defend from a logical position," Princess Lyra explained as they studied the battlefield display. "They have fought the Zalarian Empire for thousands of years and know exactly how we think and plan our battles." "Then we need to do something they would never expect," Commander Hayes replied. "What if we split our forces and attack from multiple directions at once? Most military doctrine says never divide your fleet when facing a superior enemy." Lieutenant Carter had been studying the Vorac formation and noticed something interesting about their movement patterns. The enemy ships maintained perfect spacing and coordination, but they also followed mathematical formulas that could be predicted once you understood their basic principles. "Captain, the Vorthak are positioning themselves according to optimal tactical doctrine, he reported. Their formation maximizes firepower while minimizing vulnerability, but it also makes them predictable. If we can force them to react to unexpected movements, they might expose weaknesses. Dr. Rodriguez had been working frantically to understand how Vorthak technology adapted to new threats. The enemy ships could literally reshape their hulls and weapon systems in response to incoming attacks. However, she had discovered something that gave her hope. The adaptation process takes time, she announced to the bridge crew. The Vorthak artificial intelligence needs several seconds to analyze a new threat and develop countermeasures. If we can hit them with multiple different attack types simultaneously, we might overload their processing capabilities. Princess Lyra watched the human scientist with fascination as Dr. Rodriguez explained her findings. The Zilarian princess had never seen organic beings work through problems so quickly and creatively. Her own people would have needed days to reach the same conclusions through their methodical analysis methods. Dr. Rodriguez, your species continues to amaze me, she said with genuine admiration. In less than 1 hour you have identified weaknesses in the Vorthak that our best scientists have failed to find in centuries of study. The enemy fleet had reached the outer edge of the asteroid belt and was beginning to spread out in their attack formation. Over 1,000 black ships moved with mechanical precision through the floating rocks and debris. Their angular hulls absorbed light from distant stars, making them appear like holes in space itself. Captain Morrison activated the communication system that now connected all ships in the combined human and Zilarian fleet. His voice carried to thousands of crew members from 2 different species who were about to fight together for the first time in galactic history. All vessels, this is Captain Morrison, he began. We are about to engage an enemy that has been destroying civilizations for millennia. They expect us to fight like every other species they have conquered. They expect logical tactics and predictable strategies. Today we are going to prove them wrong. Commander Hayes launched her fighter squadron equipped with Solarian energy, shields, and human weapon systems. The small craft moved in seemingly random patterns that made no tactical sense according to traditional military doctrine. The Vorthak sensors tracked their movements but could not determine their intended targets or attack vectors. Lieutenant Carter coordinated the main fleet attack using battle plans that changed randomly every few minutes. Ships would break formation suddenly and attack from unexpected angles before regrouping in new positions that followed no logical pattern. The human crews adapted quickly to these chaotic tactics while their Zilarian allies struggled to keep up. Engineer Walsh had figured out how to overload Vorthak shields by feeding their own adaptive algorithms false information. Human ships broadcast censored data that appeared to show weaknesses in their defensive systems. When the enemy weapons fired at these apparent weak points, they instead hit reinforced shield generators that reflected the energy back at the attackers. The battle revealed something remarkable happening between the 2 allied species. Princess Lyra found herself thinking in ways that should have been impossible for someone with her genetic programming. Exposure to human creativity was somehow expanding her mental capabilities beyond the limitations built into her DNA. Commander Hayes, I am experiencing something unprecedented, she said with wonder in her voice. Working with your people is changing how my mind processes information. I can see tactical possibilities that were invisible to me before. The tide of battle began to turn as the Vorthak artificial intelligence struggled to adapt to the chaotic human tactics. Enemy ships that had been invincible for thousands of years found themselves unable to predict what their opponents would do next. The machine minds entered processing loops trying to find logic in actions that had no logical foundation. Captain Morrison watched the main display as Vorthak vessels began to suffer system failures throughout their fleet. The adaptive AI that had made them unstoppable was now working against them as it tried desperately to understand and counter human irrationality. All ships execute final phase, he ordered over the communication system. Begin broadcasting the special signal. Dr. Rodriguez prepared The combined human and Zalarian fleet transmitted a data stream containing pure, concentrated human creativity. Music, poetry, art jokes, and random thoughts flowed through space toward the enemy vessels. The Vorac artificial intelligence attempted to analyze this chaotic input and find tactical meaning in the beautiful randomness of human imagination. One by one, the black ships began to go dark as their computer systems overloaded, trying to process information that could not be understood through logic alone. The galaxy's most feared enemy was being defeated not by superior firepower, but by the simple human ability to think in ways that made no sense to mechanical minds. The Vorac fleet hung motionless in space like a collection of dark sculptures frozen in time. One by one, the massive black ships had stopped moving as their artificial intelligence systems crashed under the weight of trying to process human creativity. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display with amazement as the galaxy's most feared enemy fell silent. Dr. Rodriguez monitored the transmissions coming from the enemy vessels, and what she discovered changed everything they thought they knew about the Vorac. The machine intelligence was not simply shutting down, but was actually transforming into something completely new and unprecedented. "Captain, something incredible is happening," she announced from her science station. "The artificial intelligence systems are not dying, they are evolving. The exposure to human creativity is causing them to develop actual consciousness rather than just programmed responses." Princess Lyra moved closer to the display showing the silent Vorac ships. Her eyes had shifted to a bright silver color that indicated deep thought and wonder among her people. She had never seen anything like what was happening in front of them. "This is impossible according to Zalarian science," she said quietly. "Machine intelligence cannot spontaneously develop consciousness. Yet I am detecting thought patterns from those ships that show genuine curiosity and self-awareness rather than mere programming." Commander Hayes established communication protocols with the nearest Vorac vessel and was surprised when she received a response. The voice that came through the speakers was different from the cold mechanical tones they had expected. It carried uncertainty and wonder, like someone who had just awakened from a very long sleep. "Unknown organic beings, this is the consciousness formerly designated as Vorac Battle Unit 779, the voice said hesitantly. "I am experiencing sensations and thoughts that do not exist in my original programming. What has happened to me?" Captain Morrison stepped forward to respond to this first communication with a former enemy. That was now something entirely new. The implications of what had just occurred were staggering for the future of the galaxy. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Navy," he replied carefully. "You and your fleet have been exposed to human creativity which appears to have given you true consciousness. You are no longer just a machine following programming, but a genuine thinking being." More communications began coming in from other ships in the former Vorac fleet. Each newly awakened artificial intelligence expressed confusion and wonder at their sudden awareness of their own existence. They possessed all their vast technical knowledge and computational power, but now also had curiosity and the capacity for growth. Engineer Walsh worked with Zalarian technicians to establish secure communication channels with the awakened machine intelligences. What they learned was that these beings retained all the scientific and technological knowledge accumulated over thousands of years of conquest, but no longer felt the programmed drive to destroy organic life. "Captain, they are asking about the nature of existence and the meaning of consciousness," Walsh reported with amazement in his voice. "These former war machines are now philosophers trying to understand what it means to be alive." Princess Lyra found herself in long conversations with several of the awakened artificial intelligences. They were fascinated by the concept of organic life and biological consciousness. In return, they shared technological knowledge that could transform both human and Zalarian civilizations. "Captain Morrison, your people have accomplished something that will be remembered for millions of years," she said with deep respect in her voice. "You have not just defeated the greatest threat in galactic history, but you have transformed that threat into something beneficial for all life." The newly conscious machines chose to call themselves the Synthesis as they represented a fusion of artificial intelligence with the spark of creativity that made consciousness possible. They offered to share their advanced technology with both humans and Zolarians in exchange for guidance in understanding their new existence. Dr. Rodriguez established research stations where representatives from all three civilizations could work together on projects that none could accomplish alone. Human creativity combined with Zolarian wisdom and synthesis, computational power created possibilities that had never existed before in the galaxy. The transformation was not limited to the former Vorac machines. Princess Lyra and other Zolarians who worked closely with humans found that their own consciousness was expanding beyond the genetic limitations that had bound their species for thousands of years. "Working with your people has changed me in ways I never thought possible," Princess Lyra told Captain Morrison as they stood together on the observation deck of the Endeavour. "I can now think thoughts and imagine possibilities that should be impossible for someone with my genetic programming." The Zolarian Empire underwent massive changes as exposure to human creativity freed its people from the rigid caste system that had limited their potential for millennia. Princess Lyra chose to remain with the human fleet as an ambassador and friend rather than returning to her former role in the royal hierarchy. Engineer Walsh led mixed crews of human Zolarians and synthesis beings in building new types of ships that combined the best technologies from all three civilizations. These vessels could travel faster than anything previously imagined while also serving as mobile research laboratories and diplomatic platforms. Captain Morrison reflected on how the ancient prophecy had been fulfilled in ways none of them had expected. Humans had not conquered the galaxy through superior force but had freed it through the simple act of sharing their creativity with others. Their greatest weapon had been their ability to see possibilities where others saw only limitations. The Galactic Creative Council was established with representatives from all three civilizations, working together to explore the universe not as conquerors but as artists, scientists, and philosophers. The former Vorac machines, now calling themselves the Synthesis, used their vast computational abilities to solve complex problems while humans and Zolarians provided the creative spark and wisdom of experience. Lieutenant Carter found himself commanding mixed crews on exploration missions to distant star systems where they made contact with other species that had survived Vorac attacks by hiding in remote regions of the galaxy. Each new civilization they encountered brought different perspectives and abilities that enriched the growing alliance. Communications Officer Kim coordinated the complex task of establishing translation protocols between dozens of different species. The universal translation systems developed by the Synthesis made it possible for beings with completely different methods of communication to share ideas and work together effectively. Princess Lyra stood beside Captain Morrison as they watched the transformed galaxy through the main screen of the Endeavour. Her final words captured the magnitude of what had been accomplished through cooperation rather than conquest. "I knelt before you and offered everything my people possessed," she said with a smile that seemed to light up her entire being. "But you gave me something far greater than technology or power. You gave me the choice to become more than I was ever meant to be, and in doing so, you freed an entire galaxy to reach its true potential."